This summer, Instacart presents famous summer flavors coming to your front door. Or pool. Or hotel.
Your grocery delivery has arrived, sir.
That was faster than room service.
No violins in the lobby.
Oh, seriously? Anyway, sit back, relax, and get delivery in as fast as 30 minutes. Starring your favorite snacks, drinks, and more. Download Instacart for free delivery on your first 3 orders. Rated H for hungry audiences. Offer valid for a limited time. Minimum $10 per order. Excludes restaurants. Additional terms and fees apply.
We acknowledge the traditional owners of country throughout Australia and recognise their continuing connection to land, waters and culture. We pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Welcome to This Song Is Yours, a music podcast where we chat to a new guest each week, talk about their life and creative endeavours, and talk to them about some of the music they love. Our show works by chatting to our guests about music, but also getting them to make you a playlist of the songs they love. You can find the link to our playlist in the show notes. Welcome to episode 93. I'm your host, Simon Fink. Our guest today is Client Liaison. The Australian party starters have just released their highly anticipated second record, entitled Divine Intervention. In today's episode, we're speaking with Monte and Harvey about the new record, recording in haunted studios, and selling their souls as NFTs. Here we go. Our guests today are a pop duo from Melbourne, Australia. Known for their infectious disco hooks and incredible beats, they've just released their second studio record, Divine Intervention. Please welcome to This Song Is Yours, Monte and Harvey from Client Liaison. Hello.
Howdy. Hey, guys. How you doing?
Good, thank you. Yourself?
Doing great.
That's good. Now, congratulations. It's a very big day for you. Divine Intervention is out in the world at the moment. Firstly, congratulations. What does it feel like?
Great. It's been a long time coming. Some of these songs are a few years old. And we also completed it a few months ago to try and produce a vinyl. So it almost doesn't seem real.
I imagine having songs, some of these songs were written back 2018, 2019, I think.
Yeah.
What's it like when you're recording and writing these songs and having to, for lack of a better phrase, like sit on these songs for a period of years before you can kind of release them to the masses?
I mean, it's a good observation you make. We would prefer to have all come together in the last couple of months and, cross the finish line all together holding hands. But in reality, it was a dribs and drabs over years with a global pandemic chucked in the middle. So, we've been asked this question before of, when did it feel like, do you feel great that it's handed in? I actually felt great about 6 months ago when, we were in a session and I reimagined this beat and then Monty nailed a vocal over the top and I'm like, actually, now I can see the through line. We've actually finished everything. Like we've got that last song. So yeah, it was a bit of a clumsy, non-straight line toward the end, but yeah, we're here, and I guess it's about looking back on all the little sessions and the moments over the last 4 years rather than the last 2 months.
Yeah, of course. Do you find that when you've got these songs that you kind of have been holding on to for a period of time that, like in this session 2-3 months ago or 6 months ago, where you're working on something and you're going to add that to the album, does that make you reframe something that you might have worked on 18 months ago for the record? Like, does it kind of, make you refocus what you're working on?
Definitely. I mean, there's songs that we always knew we were going to release. There were songs that were not necessarily singles, but they're just really strong songs. So they had to find a place. But we would often write the new songs to fit with the old ones to create a cohesive theme and also pick out of all the unfinished songs, pick the ones that would work together and would, have different stories to tell and different moods.
The record is absolutely brilliant. it is something that I feel that the world itself is needed, but the country in Australia is definitely needed in terms of like a very upbeat, joyous kind of party record. I imagine you've been asked this before, especially with this coming out, but was there any points where it was difficult kind of not necessarily coming up with songs, but, you know, the pandemic hasn't been kind to our dance scene, to our clubs, to our festivals? Were there times where you were like, oh, maybe this is the Client Liaison more somber album, if you will?
Oh, I think there's always struggle in the creative process, but being upbeat and escaping your woes is core to Client Liaison's ethos, giving people a good time. And often you that kind of self-belief and escapism and need to dance and party comes from suffering. So it's very cathartic.
Do you think that the record and the themes that it kind of covers is, like, I guess, a release of all those things that you've been feeling and building towards and wanting to kind of have for the last 2-3 years?
To be honest, it feels like the last 2 years have just been a bit of a blur, and it's hard to really sort of come out with the plate with the clearly presented words of wisdom of what was our takeaway from COVID and the pandemic and how shall we move forward. I would like to be able to say that, but it does feel like a bit of a blur. The way I felt about COVID the pandemic this week has changed since last. It's pretty swirling. And how that interacts with the album, I guess it's like the way I look at it is, you know, when you go to sleep and you wake up and you know time's passed, but you have no concept of that amount of time. You just know you slept, but it doesn't feel like hours. That's kind of what the pandemic feels like, and that's what's kind of feels like with the album. It's like we were kind of there and then we closed our eyes and this thing happened and now we're opening them and it's here. So that's a kind of unlettered explanation about, the album. And so, I'd probably say it's not particularly related to the suffering. Like Monty said, we're just trying to bring the positivity. There's a line that says, Monty, you can correct me, put on a smile. Monty, can you jump in? And
well, that is a bit of a critique of the older generation. And that's probably there is one song that has a slightly somber tone, because I think you need the savoury with the sweet. But in general, it's about seeing a light at the end of the tunnel, having hope despite hard times, and because we have a throwback sound and we reference lots of different eras as well. Like, we exist outside of the pandemic. We don't exist necessarily in the here and now, and it's also not about us as people and our lives and our stories and what's been happening. Of course, that it's influenced by that, but it's theatre.
Of course. One kind of thing I'd love to touch on is, I guess, pre-COVID, recording in Sunset Sounds with Nick from Empire and Pinau. I believe that the single House of Holy was inspired by, I think, the attic or like the upper levels were haunted, and that's kind of where that song came from. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, the way a song's made is it could just come from a conversation. So, it's not so conscious, but it's the flow of events. I mean, looking back, it was like, hold on, we visited the attic that morning and it was a pretty creepy experience. There were lots of weird noises and lots of scary stories. And by that night, we were kind of looking upward, trying to, take the spirit in with Nick Whittemore as, astral travel, so to speak, and take on a higher, speak of a higher plane, a better place.
He was very taking full advantage of the California's new laws around marijuana. But So yeah, it was the LA. It was kind of a bit of a trippy vibe. And then I was in this side room and the TV was stuck on Fox News. So I was just copping all this Fox News, and then Littlemore was smoking the Chiba. And so it was all a bit of a then we had some Irish bloke in there. It was a bit of a weird situation, but kind of laughing at it, looking back at it now.
How did that kind of collaboration with Nick begin with? Other than, I imagine that it wasn't over, the friendship wasn't formed over Fox News and smoking pot.
No, we worked with him in Sydney. We had one day with him where he put us to task. He made Harvey play keyboards, directing him, giving him a reference track, and then go play. And Harvey would be like, I don't play like this. And he goes, I don't care. And then he created a beat out of that. And I sang for 2 hours, and he would whip me into shape singing at halftime. And then we'd speed it back up and try to write lyrics. So he has quite an incredible toolkit for songwriting, and we're really impressed with him. And out of that came the vocal for Elevator Up. The elevator up, elevator up. And Harvey went and created that beat, and we met with him in LA a month later and took that beat and also wrote House of Holy. But it's interesting because in LA, Nick brought in multiple drummers, percussionists, all kinds of musicians. We had this massive project using tape, the Neve console, recording this massive opus for House of Holy, but we ended up only using the vocal.
Ryan Reynolds here for, I guess, my 100th Mint commercial. No. I mean, honestly, when I started this, I thought I only have to do like 4 of these. I mean, it's unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month. How are there still people paying 2 or 3 times that much? I'm sorry, I shouldn't be victim blaming here. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch. Whenever you're ready.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
So it's just weird the way things work. I mean, we used some of his production on Elevator Up as well that he did in LA.
But, now you say that, Monty, it's funny. I used to joke about, prior to going to LA, I would make this joke. I'd say, these days it's all about the laptop. Like, you go to LA and you get all these birds in and you record this like orchestra of birds in these cages and spend all this money doing that. And then I just go out, just download it off YouTube. And it's just, we did that. Like we went to our, I'm well aware of the observation. So it's kind of funny. Like, yeah, it's like we went to LA, did all that. And then it's like, how many times you hear that story, you come back and you ditch everything. I remember, reading That Cut Copy in Ghost Colours. They had a similar thing where they recorded the song for So Haunted in Australia and then went to LA, New York to Tim Sweeney. Oh, not Tim Sweeney. One of the blokes from DFA went to his studio, the big New York producer, and then ended up using the Aussie session. So I think that's kind of, I don't know, I'm just thinking about this now and it's like, as a musician, we've ticked that box of the go across the world and come back and use and not use it. So it's kind of funny, like looking back at it.
Are you guys big on collaboration in terms of like having producers there for you? Do you have a preference of whether it is just kind of yourselves directing that ship or having someone to inebriated on whatever or not, co-piloting?
Well, from the start, we'd often work separately. So we developed a great relationship with Dan Hume in 2017 and 2018. And there's probably about over a third, nearly half the songs involved him. And he was a really good moderator for us he could do anything. He's a jack of all trades. So this album ended up being very collaborative. There was one song that was just written by both of us in the kind of old style, but then we worked with a mixer across all the tracks, Francois Titaz, who was quite important in bringing the whole thing together as one. So, yeah, it was our most collaborative album, that's for sure. But, you know, we don't know what will happen next. We might go back to our old ways or start working with an orchestra or whatever, you know, whichever way the road leads us.
One thing that Nick Littlemore did teach, say that's resonated is I don't know if he said it or just he goes, oh, you know, I want to put you out of your comfort zone. And I think that's important. So now I'm not as nervous when I go into sessions. You know, previously I'd be like, oh, if you've got anything existing that you can pull up, like let's start with a head start or something. But now I'm just like happy to be, I feel more comfortable having been in sessions with him. I know I could kind of deal with anything now.
Well, as an example, I think it was last year, we started working over Zoom, which was different. And then we also, the song Eulogy for the Living, we actually wrote that on a piano, which was the first time we just sat down and stripped away the production and just focused on the song first. So, yeah, we're just open to new ways of working, anything to keep growing.
How did you find the Zoom sessions? Because I imagine beats are one thing, and obviously they're can be done on computers or laptops, but I imagine that there's a certain feel or chemistry even like when you're in a studio together. So was the Zoom sessions a little bit more difficult or just different to wrap your head around?
Yeah, we found if you have an existing, because we were doing Zoom sessions prior to COVID with Dan Hume because he moved back overseas and there were some songs that weren't complete. Certain things like writing lyrics actually work quite well because you don't look at each other, you just listen and you take turns because it's like a phone call. You can't both speak at once. So things like lyrics would work really well. Or the end, when you're looking at a mix, instead of making your way all the way to the studio just to decide on if the snare goes in that breakdown or not, it's like you can just quickly do it over Zoom and then the mixer can keep working on their own. So in some ways it's really effective, but in other ways, like if you're actually trying to come up with the idea or the melody where you can't really sing to each other and feel the beat at the same time, that's quite difficult. Or production, and generally production's done, it's done solo a lot of this time, or you're looking over someone's shoulder. So yeah, I mean, but it's another tool for us now.
Yeah, of course. I did see on Instagram that you had enlisted the help of, as I mentioned before, we're in South Australia, fellow South Australian Motez to remix Elevator Up, which is very exciting. I guess, what was the idea behind getting Motez on this track and kind of bringing in, I know we're talking about working with like Dan Hume and Nick Littlemore, but getting a more local producer to like put their take on it?
Oh, well, he's just a mate of ours and, love his stuff. We've hung out with him in Adelaide before, and Adelaide's the kind of place where it's always refreshing to have your ignorance sort of overturned. It's very humanising and it makes you feel alive again. And I remember growing up, we first started, and I'd be like, oh, Adelaide, boring Adelaide. And now it's like my favourite state in Australia. Like, I just love it. And like, we've sort of seen the community there. And I've hung out there with my friend Stasi from Stace Cadet. And there's this sort of community that like Luke Millian, Saran, who used to play in Empire of the Sun. There's another guy called James Curd, just guy, musician. And there's this like little kind of Adelaide scene, and it's quite comforting and nice to sort of pop your head in there and be tuck into that, that sense of community. So yeah, love Motez, love Adelaide, and glad it's kind of, we could go there.
Definitely. For Divine Intervention, obviously, artists during the last year or so have had to kind of get creative with not only the records, but with like the rollout. A number of bands have delayed albums, whatever it may be. You guys are selling your souls as NFTs, which is a very a sentence I didn't think I'd be saying in 2021, but here we are.
Yeah.
Where did this idea kind of come from?
I guess, there's been this little mini boom with the NFTs, and we thought we'd participate in this new market, but I thought it'd be fun to sort of like do so, but also make comment on the nature of NFTs as well, because they are intangible. So then why don't we sell something intangible? Which is, so it's a sort of inverse reflexive comment about NFTs themselves. And for those of you who are over 20 or maybe 25, you might remember a Simpsons episode where Buck sold to Millhouse. So I guess it's like there's always like a layer and a subtext to things we do. And, so it was a kind of way to, jump on the NFT bandwagon because we think it's great, but also, make comment about it. And, it's kind of fun. And, people's face light up when you say it. Oh, selling the souls. So we always like to do stuff where people's faces light up and, make a bit of point of difference between everyone else and their NFTs,
Of course. I did have, when having a read of what you guys were planning for it, I did have a little vision of, I guess, that Simpsons episode, and instead of Bart being at Millhouse's door, the two of you just, knocking on the fan's door, wanting that soul back at some point.
Yeah.
I mean, the idea is kind of that, it's Client Liaison soul, so it's not really like, not that we, and furthermore, I guess it's sort of the idea that Client Liaison belongs to everyone, and we love that idea. So it's kind of not mine or Monty's thing anymore, or never really was. It's other people's thing. So that's kind of fun. I think we might include that in the sort of press release.
Definitely. It is, as you said, Client Liaison is for everyone. And at the moment, we haven't been able to enjoy the band in probably, I feel like, what is your best setting in a live aspect. Obviously, I think the tour recently was canned except for some Melbourne dates. Silly, redundant question, but are you guys looking forward to being able to get back out there and party and play some shows?
Yeah, it's been such a long time. It's almost hard to imagine, and you look forward to the things that you can do, but also try to imagine the world without it. So, it'll be a nice surprise to go and connect to people, reinterpret our songs. But we just look at the positive side and say, let's get back in the studio and keep creating music, because the time will come where we can celebrate together.
Of course. Monte and Harvey, usually we would ask our guests what they're currently listening to, whether it's an album or a single, whatever it may be, that's getting a thorough spin on their record player or streaming service, respectively. What are you currently listening to?
I am listening to, I was listening to Creedence Clearwater Revival, which perchance got sent through in an interview. Someone said, is that a reference to House of Holy? But just happened to be listening to that.
Yeah, right.
There's this band called Royal Otis, a track called Without You. It's brought to my attention by the ever foreboding algorithm. And then otherwise there's this bloke called LANY. It's a band called LANY, and there's a track called Thick and Thin, which I really like. It's kind of like a few years old. But, they're just a couple of tracks that I've been hooning at the moment.
I would also say I love the new Jungle album.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
that album is very, very good.
Yeah.
When you guys are looking for new music, or when you're listening to new music, how much of that plays into the music that Client Liaison makes in terms of being influenced by not necessarily trends, because I think you are in your own world with that, but is there any, what's the word? I guess outside play that kind of seeps its way into the studio when you guys are writing?
I mean, we're always using reference tracks to, start ideas off, and often you'll try to replicate something, but it's not. It's just turns into something completely different. And it's often about the mix of references. Like we use the example of like one song is like Strictly Business. It was like Huey Lewis and the News mixed with Who Framed Roger Rabbit, or like one of those cartoons like Space Jam mixed with Paula Abdul. Like, so yeah, it's often about the cocktail to create something new.
That's very cool. Harvey and Monty, thank you very much for your time today. I do appreciate it. And congratulations again on Divine Intervention. The album is fantastic.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
And that's our show. A massive thank you to Client Liaison for their time. Divine Intervention is out now, and we've got links in the show notes if you'd like to buy or stream the record. We also want to give a huge shout out to Emilie at Warner Music Australia for helping out with today's interview. You can find a link to our Spotify playlist in the show notes, where you'll be able to listen to all of our guests' picks. If you like this show, please subscribe wherever you get your pods and stay up to date when new episodes are released. We release new shows each Thursday and Friday morning, with guest playlists streaming on Spotify at the same time. You can follow the playlist profile on Spotify, and you can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Until next week, cheers.